Erdem, do you want a glass of water or anything like that? We're more than happy to get you whatever you might need. Okay. I think Kyle's gonna need your full name and your date of birth. Colby, Colby. Okay. Dealey, Delea-K. Martin, Martin? Yep. And what's your birthday, Colby? 3/30/92. Meet Colby Martin, the 31-year-old, at the center of this interrogation. So what happened after you hit her? I scared and laughed. Did you leave her there? I put her on the back of the truck. Did her clothes or anything fall off of her? I don't know. You didn't take them off of her though, right? No. I know you're scared, man. I know. Okay. And that's fine. He insists he's not the villain here or even the bad guy. But before you sympathize with him, let's rewind to where this tale begins. Once you have the full picture, the truth of this case is yours to unravel. Michigan, nestled in the Great Lakes region of the United States, boasts a diverse landscape ranging from bustling urban areas to serene natural beauty. The community spirit is strong within the state with deep appreciation for outdoor activities, particularly due to the state's abundance of lochshores, forests, and recreational opportunities. Among these locales is Paw Paw, a charming village in southwestern Michigan in Van Buren County, renowned for its vineyards, peaceful downtown, and friendly atmosphere. And it's within this picturesque setting of Paw Paw that our tragic story unfolds, contradicting the state's otherwise perceived warmth and allure. It all began on September 20th, 2021 with a 911 call, which was soon to rip apart the once calm and peaceful community life. Then, you're on 911. What is the address of your emergency? This is Cass County with the transfer. I have a gentleman on the line at Oak Shores Campground. His wife did not return from a walk this morning. Okay. All right, sir. You said your wife went for a walk at what time? Around 8:15, 8:30. She goes every morning for 6 to 8 miles. What is your wife's name? Melody. Her middle name? Dawn. Dawn? Yes. August 22nd, 1957 was the day Melody Dawn Rohrer came into this world. Born in the heart of Three Rivers, Michigan, she was welcomed by the caring embrace of Durwood and Betty Birch. Her journey unfolded in the halls of Three Rivers High School, culminating in her graduation in 1975. Barely a year after tossing her graduation hat in celebration, Melody was ready for the next chapter of her life. On June 12, 1976, she exchanged vows with Richard Rohr, the very voice resonating through the 911 call in September 2021. Soon after the marriage, the Rohr's house became a place of joy as the couple welcomed 2 daughters, Brooke Rohr, who eventually married and took the name Chapman, and Jill Rohr, who later married and became Schultz. Over time, Melody approached grandmotherhood, a role that was destined to warmly embrace her. Melody embarked on her professional journey as a registered nurse, commencing her dedicated service at Silver Cross Hospital in Joliet, Illinois, where she offered compassionate care to cardiac care patients. In February 2001, returning to Michigan, she found her place at Bronson Hospital, nurturing patients with the antepartum and postpartum unit. Known for her advocacy for patients, Melody also took on the role of mentor, guiding and inspiring new nurses as they began their careers. After Melody's retirement in 2017, the couple became full-time recreational vehicle travelers, embarking on an Embrace the Journey tour across America. They traversed the country, visiting family, reconnecting with friends, exploring historical landmarks, and basking in the natural beauty of national parks. This journey epitomized their dream life, embracing each moment to the fullest. Outside her career, Melody cherished moments with her beloved family and friends, delighting particularly in spoiling her grandchildren with love and affection. Her passions extended to camping, painting, indulging in arts and crafts, reveling in music, exercising, and maintaining her well-being. Engaging in long walks was one of Melody's ways of caring for herself. However, on September 20th, 2021, what started as a regular stroll took a harrowing turn, an unexpected twist that transformed her usual routine into a truly terrifying experience. What route does she usually take? Sometimes she goes left or right out of the park. I don't know. She walks around the park? No. She exits the park, but she'll go left or right on, I think it's County Road 215. Okay. Depends on the day and what the mood is. I did a circle around areas that I think she walked in. I just saw nothing. As heard in the 911 call, 64-year-old Melody was inexplicably missing. With her absence, investigators were left to rely solely on her race, hair color, and the description of her attire from that ominous walk, marking the only clues in their search. Is she white, black, Hispanic, or Asian? White. Okay. It has not returned back. What was your last name wearing? A yellow ring coat and shorts. I'm not sure on the color of the shirt. What color is her hair? Brown. Does she have any glasses? Yes. I think she's wearing them. K. Does she have any tattoos yet? Yes. He has one on her wrist. K. Left or right? All right. I believe it's the left. Despite an exhaustive and comprehensive search for Melody, the initial investigation yielded no results except for learning that Melody was last spotted at the 84,000 block of County Road 215 in Hamilton Township. As the critical 48-hour window loomed, the police shifted their strategy. They redirected their attention to Melody's phone, a possession she had with her when she disappeared. The police found that Melody's SIM card had been placed in an unknown Samsung device for a short time during the approximate time of her disappearance. Fortunately, luck was on their side, and it was enough for them to trace it. Acting on this lead, on September 21, 2021, the police found themselves in a Walmart parking lot, where their attention was drawn to a Ford F-150 to which Melody's phone had been traced. The vehicle exhibited conspicuous damage to its front side. What heightened their interest was the realization that the car wasn't vacant. The driver was still seated inside. The man was identified as 29-year-old Colby DeLee Martin. Martin was in the driver's seat. However, Melody was nowhere to be found, and the worst possible end to this missing person case was about to be unveiled. Melody was dead. Some might question the assumption that she was deceased, but let's explore the real story together for clarification. The police immediately brought Martin into custody, and at the same time, the search of the vehicle began. During the interrogation, Martin, instead of being reluctant to speak, expressed a desire to confess and guided them to the location of Melody's body on Purgatory Road near the Three Rivers State Game Area. Eventually, he would admit to hiding her body in the Three Rivers State Game Area. He admitted to transporting her body using his black Ford truck and discarding it near the game area. Now let's take a look at the actual footage of Martin's interrogation. And now you want to hear what brought us to all this. Correct? And then you tell us you're excited. Miranda still applies. Okay. If you don't have to feel comfortable saying something to say, Dave, can I have a minute to collect myself or something like that? Not a problem. Same thing with Kyle. Do you want a glass of water or anything like that? We're more than happy to get you whatever you might need. Okay. I think Kyle's gonna need your full name and your date of birth. Colby, Colby. K. Dealey, Delea. K. Martin, Martin? Yep. And what's your birthday, Colby? 3/30/92. 92. Okay. What do you call an address? The address here is 9723 Bliley Road, White Pigeon. The interrogator then continues to ask Martin about his details. And then, who do you live at the house in White Pigeon? Would you live by yourself? By my parents. I just sold my house. Oh, you did? Where did you live at before that? In Porridge. Oh, you did? Did you live there? I know we had talked a little bit just about your family and stuff like that. Then we got divorced, so it was, well, how long were you married? It was 5 years. Okay. And you have 2 kids that we talked about. Ages 8 and 3, boy and girl? 2 boys. 2 boys. What's their names? What's your ex's name? Okay. How long have you guys been with yours? A year. Now do you have joint custody of your children? Well, that's good. How often do you get to see them? I get like Thursday to Sunday. Okay. And then I know you and I talked a little bit just about, your family and stuff. We have to talk about your employer. Is that place up there on? Yeah. What's the name of that place? How long you work there? Like 8 months. Okay. What kind of work do you do at that place? Like that it's kinda like Striker, but it's smaller. Okay. Do you work at like a backyard or something in there? Or what's well, they like make like wound stuff. Like we make stuff for like the interrogators persisted in asking preliminary questions. However, Martin was ready to delve into the main story. And Colby, you and I didn't talk about this. So I don't want to bring it up to you now. What brought I can't you probably have an idea why we've made contact with you today. Just a little bit of history about that since I haven't told you anything yet. But I think it's fair for you to know that yesterday, we got called down around the Decatur area. Do you know where that's at? Yeah. I mean, I don't know what name, but I don't know. Okay. Do you frequent Manjar County lunch or what? No. I mean, you just do your thing and I'll tell you the story. Okay. So it's just okay. Why don't you just tell me the story then? Just tell me okay. Let me do that scene with some time. So now let's listen to the disgusting story that unfolded on September 20th, 2021. Well, I mean, I was at work and my mom was sick. So they were like, because we're medical, so they were like, oh, maybe you shouldn't be here. You might have COVID or something. Or oh, her cousin had COVID, so she okay. Was around her, so they just were being cautious. I'm starting with the home. So I was just driving around and I got lost. So I was just, driving. And then I was foggy out that morning. What came out of nowhere? The lady. Okay. I tried this and I just got scared. I don't have to do. I should just call you guys. So what happened after you hit her? I don't know either. What's that? Okay. I mean like, I just got scared and left. Did you leave her there? I put her on the back of the truck. In the back of the truck? Do you know if she 1,000 moments? No. Listen. I'm not a bad person. I don't think Kyle and I need one of us to set up a movie. The situation this looks like I'm a fucking psycho. No. We neither one of us has said that, have we? Not at all. No? They're never gonna say that. But listen. I bet you'd be surprised how many people would tell you that, and we're not gonna say that. Do you think she was still alive when after you hit her? She wasn't. Okay. So from that point, where did you go? Just going back down to where we were at. Did you drive right to there? Yeah. Okay. I don't know why. Are you familiar with that area? Down there a little bit. Okay. I'm just scared. I don't know why. Martin consistently expressed remorse for what had transpired while the interrogators encouraged him to open up and share everything. Listen. You were the only one that could tell us what happened out there. I know, but I just sound, like tell me why what sounds dumb. I should have just called you guys and sounded so scared. Right? Yeah. I agree. And then I believe that's why you wanted to tell us what happened. Is that right? I'm not a bad person. Oh, so you're doing the right thing now? Yeah. You are. You're getting the story out. Yep. You want people to know your side of the story, what happened out there. But this wasn't you tracked this lady down. No. You stalked her. Right? And by you telling Kyle and I what happened out there, we've got the story of what happened. Because otherwise we wouldn't know. I spoke my ass really bad. I believe you. Nevertheless, the interrogation was far from over, and it was about to move in a different direction. All right. And then tell me about her cell phone. I didn't see a cell phone. How did her SIM card get put into your cell phone? My SIM card? Her SIM card put into your cell phone. How? I don't know. That's what we're asking you. That's how we're able to locate who you were. Remember, I didn't tell you anything about this. I'm bringing you up to your cell phone. Yeah. That's how we are able to develop you as a person of interest is because your two phones were moving together and mirroring off each other, and then the information was that her SIM card was put into your phone. But that's not the case. I didn't take it out. Okay. I don't even have, the push button. I don't even know how to get my own. Did I, no. I didn't take it out, though. I don't know. Do you remember what you did with her cell phone? Was that her pocket? I don't know. I didn't see her phone, though. Okay. All right. So maybe her phone might still be with her? I don't know. Okay. You didn't do anything with her phone. Okay. And then 1 o'clock. Okay. It seemed that Martin had convinced the interrogators that he hadn't found her cell phone. However, there were many other undisclosed details awaiting revelation. The police sensed discrepancies during the interrogation, especially when asking if he had any involvement with Melody after the incident and before disposing of her lifeless body. So which, once you put her in there, did her clothes or anything fall off of her? I didn't. And I'm just asking you just to touch your knowledge. I mean, because, Kyle and I didn't go up there where you pointed her out to us. I don't know. I didn't really, you know what I mean? Like, I was just, you didn't take them off of her though, right? No. Okay. All right. Just have to ask. Yep. Some observers might question why the interrogator wasn't directly confronting or accusing Martin of being involved in something more than just hitting Melody with a car. However, the interrogator was employing a method characterized by empathy and repetition. In this style of questioning, the goal is to understand the individual in front of them. By building rapport and empathy, the interrogator can aim to create an environment where the person being questioned might gradually open up and share secrets they wouldn't typically divulge. Here's how the interrogator proceeded with this approach. Tell me what's going through your mind today. My voiceover. Why do you think that? I'd live with that for now. Okay. But don't you think what you're doing it by coming forward and by coming to Kyle and I or to us when they're out there, but then I want a good job now and all that shit? Everybody, this is not the end of the world. You made a mistake. I started getting my shit together, and now I'm back. Tell me how you get what happened? Does something happen in your life before that? Well, I just started a divorce. Okay. That was hard and my son was taking it hard. Yeah. Divorces are hard. The interrogator employed various strategies to establish trust with Martin, even attempting to provide him with emotional support and comfort to make him feel better during the interrogation process. At times, he even talked to him like they were friends and like he was interested in learning about Martin. You love your kids. I can tell. How you still feel about your ex. You still have feelings for her. Yeah. About her feelings back for you. You know what I mean? So not now. She doesn't know about this. Oh, she's gonna find out. She doesn't know about this. That's why it's gonna be on paper. She doesn't know about this. You know? Were you guys trying to reconcile it all or not? Or has she moved on? I have a girlfriend. Oh, you do? Okay. You do happen right now? Because I don't know if I will now. Who's the latest lady in your life? Her name's Taylor. Taylor. Do you mind me asking what Taylor is my name? I don't talk to her. I just wonder. But by this point, the interrogation appeared to have stalled despite the police's planned strategies. And at times, it seemed like Martin was actually being entirely truthful. His convincing demeanor led investigators to entertain the notion that it might have indeed been just an accident after all. Did you or did you not feel a sense of relief once you said that? I'm glad. So she's not just laying there, right? Usually I'm like, never, but I just feel so bad. Like, I'll be honest with you. I don't think anybody's a winner in this. I think I feel sorry for you and I feel sorry for them. Just that's why they call them accidents. Before temporarily concluding the interrogation, the police requested Martin to provide an explanation of the scene. If you would, I'd like you to kind of draw out the scene if you're willing to do that. So if we just do, it doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be a work of art, but just draw the road and where your truck was and where this continued for another half hour before eventually concluding the interrogation. However, as the interrogation reached its conclusion, the interrogator was compelled to ask the lingering question that had persisted since the beginning. Did Martin engage in physical activities with Melody? I know you're scared. I know. Okay. And that's fine. Doesn't it look if you were to play young, you have to look at it and you'd have to ask. Scared to say the short thing, right? And then is that why you didn't tell Kyle in the first place? I'm not sure it's because you were afraid that we automatically think. Yeah. Then I'm like, okay. Then they're gonna be like, oh, what is the third? Which isn't there a very logical reason that, like you said, I'm pulling her out. They were ripped off her right away. No. That's why I was afraid, right? I just shut down the year. I should call, right? And we wouldn't have had to worry about this. We wouldn't be where we're at today, would we? Yeah. You know? The interrogation concluded with Martin denying any physical involvement with Melody. Nonetheless, the ongoing investigation initiated since Martin was discovered in the Walmart parking lot suggested a different narrative regarding this matter. Now, you might think that the interrogation was not as disturbing as we had hinted at earlier, right? However, the story is far from being over. Initially, Martin was released on a $300,000 bond and faced charges of manslaughter involving a motor vehicle leaving the scene of an accident resulting in death and concealing the death of an individual. However, as the police delved deeper into their investigation, they started uncovering evidence suggesting that the assault might have been intentional rather than accidental. Now, why would the police suggest that? Authorities discovered contraceptives containing DNA from both Melody and Martin in his car and in a trash can near his residence. Additionally, they uncovered disturbing online searches made by Martin shortly after the woman was reported missing involving explicit videos depicting dead or unconscious women. Well, we think now everyone understands why the interrogation was disgusting. Martin consistently showed remorse, which garnered trust by making it seem like he regretted his role in the incident. It was exactly what he wanted, to be safe from what had actually happened after he hit Melody. However, the walls were closing in on him, and he was nearing the end of his lies, a final confrontation with the full force of the court's judgment. Almost 2 years later, in 2023, Martin was arrested again for Melody's murder at his girlfriend's residence in Big Rapids. While the exact date of his arrest remains undisclosed, it was known that he was denied bond. Martin's lawyer, attorney Jim Miquio, voiced skepticism, stating that he doesn't see the justification for the additional murder charges. However, on June 14, 2023, jurors found Martin guilty on charges including open murder, failure to stop at the scene of an accident when at fault resulting in death, and concealing the death of an individual. Van Buren County Circuit Judge Kathleen Brickley expressed to Martin that while it never brought her joy to impose a life sentence without the possibility of parole, in this particular case, it provided her with an extraordinary sense of relief. On July 31, 2023, Martin received a life sentence without the chance of parole. So do you believe Martin committed the heinous acts he was accused of? If yes, do you think the final verdict was appropriate, or should Martin have been sentenced to death? Let us know your opinion. We'd love to hear from you. Moreover, if you have any cases that you want us to cover, feel free to drop your suggestions in the comments section. You know what this conversation was going to be about? No, I had no idea what this conversation would be about, but I didn't know I knew it would be for all of them to come all the way to my that doesn't make sense. It makes perfect sense to me. Here's the thing is, if you knew what it was about and then you threw your phone, I understand where you're going. But if you did know what it's about, what's the purpose of throwing your phone away? The man being questioned by the detective here is 44-year-old Dennis Perkins, also known as Denny. The Livingston Police Department received a tip from the National Center of Missing Exploited Children and found some images on Denny's drive depicting the sinister acts he'd performed on children. The original NCMEC cyber tip that I received came from Adobe, where there was some photoshopped images of child. So I don't know child. Yes. Images of children. Yes. That could have been a 6-year-old. Could have been a 16-year-old. That's still a child. I'm not saying that's what it was. I'm saying under the age of 17 is child. Denny went as far as engaging in intimate activities with these children, forcing them to do unspeakable things for his own pleasure. The worst part was that Denny captured all of his dirty acts on camera so he could watch them anytime and engage in self-pleasure. Another shocking thing about this case was that Denny himself was the commander of the Livingston Parish Sheriff's Office SWAT unit. But that wasn't all. If you think he acted alone, you're mistaken. Detectives also brought in Denny's wife, 34-year-old Cynthia Perkins, for a round of questioning regarding the same concerns. Cynthia was a junior high teacher and was a part of these filthy acts against children as much as Denny was. A particular set of images on Denny's drive showed him lacing some cupcake batter with his bodily fluids, which were later shown being consumed by Cynthia's students. And this was only the tip of the iceberg. The horrors that came to light later in the case left the town of Livingston in great shock. The sinister games Denny and Cynthia played with these children finally came to a halt on October 22, 2019, when the couple was arrested by Livingston police. It was shocking that the ones who are supposed to protect, the ones who are looked upon, the ones who are expected to be trusted the most, turned out to be the cruel ones. Due to the sensitive nature of the case, the identities of the victims and their relations to the perpetrators had been kept a secret to protect their identities. But what was brought to light was the utterly disturbing nature of the crime Cynthia and Denny had committed against their victims. What more could Cynthia and Dennis have possibly done to these young souls? Were there any more children or adults who fell prey to this wicked couple? Cynthia was born on April 13, 1985 to Gregory and Angela Thompson. She grew up with her siblings Patricia and Paul and had a seemingly ordinary childhood. As she grew older and completed her education, she married a man named James Jones. Initially, Cynthia and James went on to have a pretty normal married life, and with time, the couple welcomed 3 children named Alyssa, Carter, and Evan. The children grew up in the family home in Louisiana, where Cynthia started her teaching career at Live Oak Middle School in February 2012. She later transferred to North Live Oak Elementary School in February 2013, and then to Westside Junior High School in February 2016, where she taught until February 2019. However, at some point in their marriage, things started to get shaky, and eventually, James and Cynthia went through a divorce. Following the divorce, Cynthia met and quickly fell in love with Dennis Perkins, who was also known as Denny. Denny Perkins was born on August 13, 1975 to Dennis Warren Perkins and Rebecca Allen. Just like Cynthia, Denny too had a normal childhood. He grew up and pursued a career in law enforcement. During this time, he got into a relationship with a woman named Darla Gale Hood. The two got married later and had a son named Devin Perkins. However, their romantic bliss was short-lived. Denny and Darla's relationship faced challenges, and the couple eventually separated in February 2011 due to allegations of domestic abuse. Even after their separation, Denny still kept tabs on Darla. Later, Darla filed several court filings, including one where she detailed an incident where she caught Denny parked in his unmarked patrol car outside her boyfriend's home to spy on him. Darla suspected that Denny had been there for most of the night, pointing to his bloodshot red eyes while being confronted. When questioned about his presence, his response was, "Isn't this a free country?" Being in law enforcement, Denny was clearly using his freedom for his personal gains. In the filed complaint, Darla detailed that Denny engaged in harassing behavior. He'd started making troubling phone calls and sending threatening text messages to Darla. Additionally, Darla accused him of installing a keystroke logger on her computer, aiming to gain unauthorized access to her private data and personal accounts. Once he obtained access, he went through her emails and contacted men she had communicated with. Then Denny threatened these men as well and ordered them to stay away from Darla. Most distressingly, he manipulated their shared child and used him as a tool in his attempts to control and express jealousy. He frequently threatened to take their son away from Darla, denying her visitation rights. Clearly, Denny exhibited toxic traits of dominance and resentment. Eventually, Darla remarried and Denny did so too. This time around, he entered into a marriage with Shannon Jackson, which not so surprisingly also ended in a divorce. Following the failures of their respective relationships, Denny and Cynthia eventually found each other. On December 7, 2018, they left their old lives behind and tied the knot in Las Vegas. At that time, Denny served as the head of a SWAT team for the Livingston Sheriff's Office, while Cynthia continued her career as a middle school teacher. Externally, they appeared to be an ideal couple. To the unsuspecting world, Cynthia and Dennis were two individuals who, despite having had previous unsuccessful marriages, were deeply in love. They held respected professional positions and shared 4 beautiful children between them. In 2019, Cynthia and Denny faced a significant upheaval as all their hidden, disturbing secrets were exposed to the world. On September 23, 2019, the Louisiana Bureau of Investigation, or simply LBI, received a cyber tip report from the National Center of Missing and Exploited Children. This tip contained information about the potential distribution of explicit images involving harm to children. Upon tracing the IP addresses associated with the images which have been uploaded on Adobe, LBI agents discovered a connection to Denny and Cynthia's residence on Rosalie Drive in Denham Springs. On October 22, 2019, LBI agents executed an electronic search warrant and made a shocking discovery while going through Cynthia and Denny's devices. And although the warrant revealed explicit images of children and confirmed the allegations against Cynthia and Denny, there was still a lot more to be uncovered. Another search which was executed at the couple's home in Denham Springs revealed more disturbing details about Cynthia and Denny's dirty deeds. Along with numerous disturbing videos which showed children being harmed, there were images of Denny exposing his genitals in public. Denny, who was on a fishing trip nearly 4 hours away from home, was going about his life as if nothing was amiss. LBI contacted him on his work cell phone and arranged a meeting to discuss the matter. While Denny was still en route, he called the LBI agents again and changed the meeting location. When the agents finally came face to face with Denny, they noted at the time Denny was driving his patrol car, which was not intended for personal use or to be taken so far from the county. Mr. Dennis, obviously, I'm guessing you've had a couple of drinks if you're on a fishing trip today. Yeah. So would you say you're drunk at this point? Or you're in the right state of mind and understand what's going on as much as can be at this point? Sure. Okay. That being said, I'm just gonna go over some rights with you. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can be used against you in a court of law. Later, Denny agreed to speak with the LBI agents and answer any questions they had. But he told them that he disposed of a cell phone in the lake before meeting with them. One thing I don't want to do is leave any electronic equipment that somebody might come across this kind of stuff. So is any of that kind of stuff on any electronic equipment here? Do you have anything here that's still to camp? Or is it all it's behind? I don't have any of them. No cell phones? You don't have any here or you don't have any here? I don't have any. That you don't have what? I mean, they called you on cell phones. You haven't had any, I know. Yeah. I did have a cell phone before I came over here. So where'd it get tossed to? In the over the Pendleton Bridge. Okay. Any reason for tossing over Pendleton Bridge? Just you knew what this conversation was going to be about? No. I had no idea what this conversation would be about, but I didn't know I knew it would be for all of them to come all over the place. That doesn't make sense to me. Well, it makes perfect sense to me. Here's the thing is, if you knew what it was about and then you threw your phone, I understand where you're going. But if you did what it was about, what's the purpose of throwing your phone away? I mean, it doesn't make sense to toss your phone to talk to your phone. It makes sense because, I've naked pictures of my wife on there. Okay. And you know as well as I do. I have to have a search warrant to look at unless you gave me consent. I get that. Which means if there was nothing on that phone that I needed to see, then I would have never seen those pictures in your life, which would make me believe ya. But what I'm saying is no. I know what you're saying, but it's just a little skewed. This has always been AI, I get it. What I'm saying is you're an intelligent guy and throwing away $1,000 phone doesn't make sense in this. There's something to leave with. No, that's an assumption. I'm telling you don't have to agree with me or not. I'm saying you don't have to agree with me. I'm just saying from a logical perspective, it's the equivalent of getting rid of your car because some car was and there was another stolen car around that could have been yours. It just completely makes no sense. But it doesn't really matter. No, it makes sense to me. So let me ask you this. Since your phone was tossed over the bridge, is that a unit or is that your personal? That's a unit. That's a unit. Is there any electronics in that unit? I don't know. That belongs to you. It belonged to me? Yes, sir. Is there going to have to go through what's in that unit? So are they going to find the cell phone that got tossed over the bridge in the unit? No. Are they going to find their office cell phone in that unit? So you have no means of communicating right now at all? Sorry, man. No. I understand. I mean, I'm not faulting you for it. Just doesn't make your situation look any cleaner because you did that has nothing to do with it. Okay. So you never knew I was here. So your major wanted to talk to you. So it makes sense to throw your phone over the bridge when you come talk to your major. What was the reason he gave you for meeting up with me? He just said it was an emergency. Okay. I mean, look, dude, I'm not even stressing your phone. The reality is that it really looks bad when your boss calls and says, I need to talk to you, and the first thing you do is to look at yourself. I mean, that's the only way to look at it. There's no other way to look at it. But no, there is a way to look at it. Okay. The other way to look at it would be that you were afraid your boss was going to look at pictures on your phone? Yes. Why would he have any reason to look at your personal self? Yes. Personal cell phone? It's not my personal cell phone. That was the office cell phone you threw over the bridge? Yeah. It's on the phone I have. Okay. So when we go up on the phone and it's not showing at the over the bridge and it's still functioning, then what? Is it gonna get the cam? It's not. I mean, so you can do that. Okay. We'll have to check that out. Yeah. I'm not lying to you, man. I'm not discarding a phone in such a matter strongly implied that Denny was aware of what could be coming. LBI agents recognized Denny's actions as an attempt to destroy evidence, as the phone might have contained more proof of Denny's heinous acts. Original cyber tip. The original NCMEC cyber tip that I received came from Adobe, where there was some photoshopped images of child uploaded. So I don't know how. Would be, yes, images of children, basically. That could have been a 6-year-old, it could have been a 16-year-old. That's still a child. I'm not saying that's what it was. I'm saying under the age of 17, it's child. I can tell you from that point, we did a search warrant to the account, which the Gmail account was. Remember the Gmail account name offhand? Good. Which I believe was one of your accounts. So we did a search warrant to that account, and then we did a search warrant to the Adobe account. I can tell Adobe account we found 3 images of child, and in the Gmail account we found your driver's license, and I'm assuming a contract for your boat and things like that, kind of confirming that was your account. So that's what I'm saying, is that that's kind of where we are at this moment. I would like to kind of hit it, bro. I mean, I wish I could see what you're talking about. I don't understand. Does anybody else have access to the Adobe or to the that you know of offhand? I don't know. I mean, those things stay open, you know, like I don't know. Okay. I can tell you that there's a number of images that were photoshopped. A number of things like pictures of some girls that were at schools. It's like some juvenile high school type schools or like junior high type schools, where the picture was then photoshopped to where, I'm assuming it would have been yourself being photoshopped into a sexual position with that girl. Was that just kind of a playing around being stupid type thing? Or was that a you and your wife kind of bouncing pictures back and forth? Or how'd that thing come about? I know you got a million things going on in your head, and I know you have a million stories you're reversing or explanations you're trying to get straight. You got 2 options, really. You need to kind of give me the reality of where we are, or we have no option but to go with what the images and the photoshops and pictures look like. And they paint a really bad picture. Yeah. I understand what you're saying, but there's really no good picture to look at, but it's bad or worse is what we're looking at this point. And I think we're at the bad spot, not the worst spot. I don't think you're the guy gonna be out there trying to kidnap kids. I think you just got wrapped up in some stupid shit. Initially cooperative and responsive, Denny changed his stance once Denny immediately stopped talking and asked for an attorney. Consequently, Denny was arrested on charges of obstruction of justice related to the discarded phone and the warrants issued by LBI for those explicit media. Later, he was transported back to Livingston Parish. As the evening progressed on the night of the execution of the search warrant, Cynthia, completely unaware of what was going on, returned to her home where she was met by LBI agents seeking her for an interrogation session. Initially, Cynthia was cooperative. She agreed to comply with the line of questioning. I was being shady, so I would just send like any picture I took on my phone wearing the blazer all the day. I would just send it. Okay. Because he would say deleting pictures from my phone is shady. You know, like, are you being shady? Are you being shady? You always joke around. I thought he was joking and saying that. I'm like, I'll just send you everything. But I took a picture of my shoe. You want to see it? Kind of thing. You know? Because it's like, I keep my phone on me at all times in my classroom. I use it as a timer while I'm teaching. So you're just kind of randomly sending him pictures because he was being kind of overbearing as far as what you were doing on your phone? Well, yeah. There may have been stuff that was randomly taken just from my phone being on camera. There's really hidden cameras in my baby's bed. Do you continue? Did they always know that you were taking a picture of them? My students? Yeah. Unless I inadvertently took pictures, whatever. Like, whenever I had my phone on me, like, sometimes I would, like, touch the side of it to turn it off and inadvertently take a picture. But if I'm taking pictures of them, they know I'm taking pictures of them. Okay. So I would think that they would know I'm taking pictures. I mean, they know I'm taking pictures. Like, she's taking pictures, right? Stop it. She's taking pictures. Okay. So the picture then where you're sitting in a chair and there's a girl sitting in a chair or a desk, kind of like just catty corner to you. And the picture that you took is basically like if somebody just took a picture of my legs and like maybe all you could see was from here down. Do you remember taking a picture like that? Because that looks, like a little bit more than an accident. Like, it's not, blurry or anything like that if you accidentally took it. Was it cropped? I don't think so because we'll pull them in here. I don't think it was cropped. Do you sometimes crop the pictures? Yeah. I crop pictures whenever I take them if it's something. What would make you crop the picture? What would be the reason behind that? Like, if I'm taking a picture of one person and there's other thing from the background, I would crop the picture. Okay. Would there ever be a time that maybe you did take a picture of a student from head to toe and then for whatever reason you just cropped out their face or the top portion of them? No. Oh my gosh. No. Well, I was thinking maybe if there was like a privacy issue or something like that. Yeah. And you would blow it out their face if you don't, But when presented with the distressing images the agents had discovered, which showed victim number 1, a young girl aged 12, Cynthia promptly stopped talking. If I was your daughter, do you have a daughter? If I was your daughter's teacher, would you think it's okay for me to take pictures of your daughter and send them to my spouse? If you think that your spouse is taking it at face value, like, look at this goofball, then yeah. But now, no one, I just don't know what to think. I can't believe that there's hidden cameras inside. Cynthia, I'm gonna tell you this. I'm gonna be real with you. Just like he said, I ain't lied to you. My wife works in a school, and I'm not saying that you're at fault for that, for doing what you did. But there is some fault to be pointed at you. Because if I asked her to send a picture like that, she would probably knock the hell out of me. You see where I'm going with this? You're playing a part. Okay. And I get it. Were there pictures saved of the boys? Because I would send pictures and look at this kid. He brought me this present, holding it up. Did this kid, he's being stupid. He's doing a hand save in class. Did he save those pictures? Were those on the cloud? Did y'all see those? Or y'all only see, you know what I'm saying? Is he saving everything? Does he have pictures? Does he have a camera in this bathroom? Does he have, you know what I'm saying? It's not like I only send him those pictures. Okay. It's this, I have to think if you back up to what you told us a few minutes ago of your tendencies, which is your personal thing. Yeah. That's irrelevant to this. But in a way, it's not because that means y'all discuss things and are open about things. It's mighty hard for me to sit here and listen to you talk to him and you play innocent the whole time. I think there's more to your knowledge that you know about, and this is what he's explaining to you. You need to come forward and tell us. And I get what y'all are saying 1000%, but my lesbian tendencies are with, adults. Adults. And I understand that. And it's a bisexual thing. It's not just, and I'm speaking of his tendencies. Did you ever find pictures on his phone? Like other girls? But none. You ever find any he was cheating on me? You ever found any Photoshop pictures on his phone? I know he played on Photoshop app, but I thought he was just trying to figure it out. Young girls? Young girls. He did not every time I would go in the room. That's why I thought he was cheating on me. He would exit out of his phone. I'm like, what were you looking at? He's like, oh, I was just looking at Facebook. And I was like, you're being shady too. Because I tell you I'm being shady. So subsequently, the agent started the process of obtaining an arrest warrant for both Cynthia and Denny. The couple was charged with 62 counts, out of which 60 counts were specifically related to the images of a 12-year-old child. Both Denny and Cynthia were held captive in the Livingston Parish Jail. Over the course of time, the full extent of the charges and additional information gradually unfolded. As detailed in an affidavit, The cumulative count reached a staggering 150 charges jointly attributed to Cynthia and Denny. And as expected, they both pleaded not guilty. Over the months following Cynthia and Denny's arrest, an examination of numerous electronic devices revealed a substantial amount of additional evidence against the couple. The victims included 2 children, 2 adults, and even a dog. In the course of the search, law enforcement discovered a plethora of electronic devices, the contents of which delivered an overwhelming and shocking blow. LBI agents made a gut-wrenching revelation that was utterly horrifying and disgusting and left everyone stunned. First of all, it was an alarming case for sure.
This all started in
February when these 2 individuals, a deputy in Livingston Parish and his teacher wife who was a middle school teacher, got caught by Adobe. They were photoshopping things. Adobe turned them into authorities in Louisiana, which launched an investigation. Authorities with the Attorney General's office showed up at the couple's house. They found a safe full of hard drives, computers, thumb drives, things like that, and all of it was encrypted with a software called Keep My Data Safe. And so, essentially, they had to come in and decode everything. And when they decoded everything, they were alarmed at what they saw. They saw a child. They saw a child. Law enforcement found approximately 60 files, which included videos and photos of a 12-year-old girl who is referred to as child victim number 1. These explicit photos and videos showed child victim number 1 being forced into performing erotic acts on Denny, and then Denny engaging in explicit acts with a young girl. Cynthia and Denny's other child victim was under the age of 17 and was referred to as child victim number 2. There were photos and videos of the couple indulging in explicit acts with this child as well. The most shocking thing was that these images not only showed Denny with the child but also Cynthia. She was a part of these disgusting acts just as much as Denny was. Strange as it may sound, it was not just human interactions that Denny preferred. In one of the videos obtained by the LBI, Denny could be seen half-naked and pleasuring himself while involving a dog. However, the most deranged video found by the LBI agents was the cupcake video, which showed Denny engaged in explicit self-pleasuring acts, and he then contaminated energy drinks and cupcake batter with his own bodily fluids. These cupcakes were eventually consumed by people who are clearly unaware of what was in them. Cynthia had baked those cupcakes and taken them to school where she fed them to her students. There was also, I want to ask you about this. Was there ever a time that your husband delivered, like, petit four cakes to your classroom? Do you remember that where he brought snacks for the class or something like that, like small cakes? Petafores, I mean, do you remember that? He brought some for me once. Oh, it was for you? Did you share them with your students? Okay. When was that? It was last school year or 2 school years ago. 2 school years ago. Do you remember if he was working when he brought you those? Like, was he in uniform in a gym then? Or was it his off day? I think it was an off day. I'm sorry? I think it was an off day, but I really can't remember. And that's okay, especially if it was 2 years ago. I don't blame him. Even that. He brought me because I love the divorce. Right? Who doesn't? Okay. So he brought you like a treat at school, but you don't remember necessarily sharing them with a student, or taking a picture of a student eating one. Okay. We have some video. Okay. And that's why, because there's some pictures in there of, and I don't know if he photoshopped them or what exactly it is involving those petitafores, some like indecent kind of stuff. And we just were trying to make sure that a student didn't inadvertently eat a petit for that, okay? So you don't generally share your snacks with your kids? No? Okay. I mean, sometimes I do. If I do, it's for a reward for something. Yeah. It's probably not your petitafores. No. That's expensive. And you don't have enough for everybody. So no. Okay. So you don't remember doing that? Because he has a picture of a kid eating a petitafor. And we may be able to pull up that picture and show it to you if we have it. I'm sure we do, just whether we have it here. So tell me about, because I did see some of the picture. No. But, I mean, I'll generally, take pictures of my students. Haven't really, this school year I've been busier, but I like to take a lot of pictures of my students just because, and that makes sense. Some of the pictures, though there were some images where you're to some pastries of some kind, and then very shortly after, kids were eating these pastries. So how did the kids get pastries to begin with? Did you give them to the kids? Or did your wife give them to the kids? I'm not saying they're the same items. They might be. I don't know. But how did they get the pastries to begin with? Did you hand them or did your wife hand them to me? Dan, you gotta talk to me. So I said, that's the question I need the answer to. There's some propels in my boat. Can I get one or you get one? Or a drink? Yeah. We'll get a 20-second order. Yeah. We'll get you one. I really just go back to the gym or wherever you're going. We're going to. Again, that's the question I really need the answer to. I know you need answers, man. I just really not. I don't care. Here's my things. Case-wise, I don't care about it. Case was done when you and I sat down and talked. I would like to get your side of it. But I didn't know. But I don't think my side of it's health-wise and who I need to contact going forward really depends on what happens. So health-wise? Yeah. I mean, if you ejaculated onto a pastry and then a kid ate that's a major problem. Right. I know. So the question I need to be able to confirm who put that pastry in that child's hand, and I need to be able to confirm whether it was the same one or whether it wasn't. So obviously you ejaculated onto some pastries. There's pictures of that. The next series of pictures were kids eating what appeared to be the same pastries. So was that pastry handed to that petit fleur, was that handed to the child by you, or was it handed to the child by somebody else? Nobody ate pastries at a check threshold. Okay. Then did you give them a second batch that they ate that were clean pastries, or did your wife give it to them? Or how did they get those pastries how would you know that those weren't the ones that ejaculated on? I appreciate you asking me all these questions. Apparently, I need to talk to somebody else. As the kids consumed those contaminated cupcakes, Cynthia watched them silently and clicked of them. Luckily, these images became solid evidence against Cynthia and Denny. Also saw what appeared to be this deputy who was ejaculating on sweets that were then being served to his wife's class. My God. My God. So do we know if any of the children were actual students or relatives? Or were these just videos that they collected off of the internet? So according to the court documents that we have, the kids that were served the sweets were definitely students in her class. They photoshopped, apparently, the kids' photos, and then they had pictures of the children eating the sweets, the cupcakes that he had ejaculated on. In terms of the actual victims that were raped by these individuals, we're told that they possibly were some of their close associates or people that they knew. There were some other media files discovered on the couple's electronic devices, which didn't include any victims, but showed only Cynthia and Denny indulging in erotic acts. And although Cynthia and Denny were not being charged for these photos and videos, they clearly showed their wicked intentions. The first file was titled, Role Play. Sometime on April 19, 2019, Denny had recorded a video of him and Cynthia having intercourse. In the video, Cynthia could be seen wearing a schoolgirl skirt which the agents believed belonged to child victim number 1, the 12-year-old girl. On top of that, Denny kept calling Cynthia by the child victim number 1's name in the video, while Cynthia kept calling herself a dirty little schoolgirl. And if that wasn't enough, the video also showed Cynthia talking in a creepy manner and mimicking a young girl's voice while saying some disturbing things to Denny. Additionally, the agents found some notes that Cynthia had created on her phone. These notes mostly described Cynthia and Denny's dirty fantasies about child victim number 1. The things which were described in these notes highlighted the ruthless and merciless nature of Cynthia and Denny's rotten minds. During a forensic interview which was conducted with child victim number 1 in early September 2019, she detailed certain actions Cynthia had taken against her before the more explicit incidents occurred. She talked about an incident from 2016 when Cynthia forcibly pulled her by the hair and dragged her into the bathroom, slammed her face against the wall, threw her to the ground and proceeded to slap and hit her continuously. Additionally, she described another incident where she woke up to find Cynthia sitting on her bed with a hostile expression on her face. The victim also mentioned that Cynthia would unfairly blame her for issues in Cynthia's past failed relationships. Denny's devices also contained some images he had photoshopped to aid his pleasures and to satisfy his disgusting obsession with young children. All of these photos had been taken by Cynthia, which she had forwarded to Denny. Another video titled, The Banana Video, showed Denny giving orders and forcing child victim number 1 to perform inappropriate acts on a banana. The agents also found 17 photos of child victim number 2, all of which were taken during March 2019 in their driveway. In these photos, Denny had zoomed in on her private areas. Cynthia and Denny had some seriously messed up tendencies. Not only did the couple engage in disturbing acts, but they also documented them for their own sick pleasures. Their use of cameras to capture these acts on film thus created a twisted collection of footage to revisit and derive pleasure later on was absolutely horrifying. Denny's obsession as he first took photos or videos and thereafter edited himself into them to satisfy sick desires defined a whole new level of depravity. As disgusting as these acts were, they seemed to have become a habitual part of Dennis' twisted world. However, his obsession went even further than this. As per Denny's former partner, he had acquired a watch with a hidden camera, also known as a spy watch. Denny had designated a specific bathroom in his home for women to use. This partner noticed a disturbing pattern. Whenever a young girl went into the bathroom to take a shower, Denny would conveniently leave the watch on the counter, secretly recording their actions. It was evident that he was collecting footage through deceitful means. When confronted by his ex-partner about this, Dennis completely lost control. According to the ex-partner, in order to get rid of the incriminating evidence, Dennis destroyed the watch by smashing it into pieces, which only made him appear more guilty. Denny didn't limit his sick agenda to his personal devices alone. He also used the devices provided by the Livingston Sheriff's Office where he was employed. During an extraction from an external hard drive discovered at Denny's home, one of the deputies uncovered a DVD containing explicit footage of a young girl getting undressed in a bathroom. Denny's misconduct during his work shifts in 2012 included a disturbing incident where he pulled over a woman while on duty. While she was searching for her license, Denny used a camera to improperly record her, focusing on her body by pointing the camera down her shirt. When the woman leaned over to search the passenger side, Denny swiftly moved the camera down and aimed it up her jean shorts, attempting to capture footage of her intimate area, as she wasn't wearing any underwear at the time. He repeated this inappropriate behavior 3 times as he continuously encouraged her to bend over and search, all while she remained unaware of being recorded. Additionally, videos were discovered showing Denny engaged in inappropriate activity with female suspects he had just arrested right by the roadside. Denny would stop these women and blackmail them into doing unspeakable things. Denny also derived sick pleasure from engaging in inappropriate acts near sleeping girls. In 2013, he filmed a video of a young girl sleeping with the camera positioned to capture an invasive view of her shorts. Throughout the video, Denny was engaged in self-pleasure. Approximately 2 weeks later, Denny recorded 2 more videos, this time involving 2 girls. Once again, he angled the camera up their shorts and proceeded to engage in self-pleasure. At the end of the video, Denny's bodily fluids were visible on the bed near the girl's feet, which he then covered with a comforter. By then, the agents were convinced that Denny and Cynthia derived pleasure from indulging in their twisted fantasies, even at the risk of getting caught. In another video that was obtained, Cynthia and Denny were seen engaging in explicit behavior on a plane while recording themselves. These individuals shamelessly engaged in inappropriate acts in a way that others could witness. Even when a flight attendant passed them by, they didn't stop and continued to indulge in their heinous acts. Denny and Cynthia's reprehensible actions extended beyond children, as they also victimized a few adults who were only identified as adult victim number 1 and adult victim number 2. According to the LBI agents, adult victim number 1 had visited Denny and Cynthia's house along with a friend. During the visit, Denny started inquiring about everyone's unique talents in bed. The friend of adult victim number 1 began to feel highly uncomfortable and decided to leave. However, adult victim number 2 chose to stay. Unaware of Denny's true nature and thinking of it as a highly naughty conversation, adult victim number 1 told Denny about her special talents. In an interview with the LBI, adult victim number 1 revealed another disturbing incident that took place in late 2018. She explained that she had visited Denny and Cynthia's home with her young daughter. After having a drink, she started to feel lightheaded and fell asleep. When she woke up the next morning, she found herself in Cynthia's daughter's room with no recollection of what had happened the previous night. When she asked Cynthia about it, Cynthia simply stated that she took care of it. Unfortunately, This woman was taken advantage of and the incident was captured on video. It was likely that some form of drugging was involved in the incident. And not so surprisingly, when the LBI agents were conducting their search of the Perkins home, they found many drugs such as muscle reluctance, multiple insomnia medications, Percocet antihistamines, and flu medication. All these drugs had the common side effect of causing drowsiness. Lastly, there was also a video acquired in which Denny and another woman who was unnamed and unknown at the time of his arrest were taking advantage of adult victim number 2, who was unconscious the whole time in the video. This video was filmed on November 8, 2014. The detectives had no idea who this other woman taking advantage of the victim in the video was, but it was certain that it wasn't Cynthia. As part of the investigation, Denny's career history was examined as well. In July 1998, at the age of 22, Denny applied for a position with the Baton Rouge Police Department. As part of the hiring process, he was required to undergo a polygraph test. During the test, Denny was asked specific questions to which he responded affirmatively. Shockingly, his written explanations for these affirmative answers were truly disturbing. Denny admitted that when he was 18, he engaged in inappropriate behavior with a girl only to discover later that she was just 13 years old. He also confessed that in 1995, he exposed himself in exchange for beads during Mardi Gras, and this indicated a pattern of exposing himself in various situations and sexualizing everything he came into contact with. Additionally, Denny also wrote that he had recently engaged in credit card fraud by attempting to enter a random card number online. However, his fraudulent attempts were unsuccessful. He openly admitted that he'd previously peeked through his sister-in-law's window multiple times while she was undressing solely to satisfy his erotic desires. Furthermore, he acknowledged sending photos of a girl to a website, fortunately without them being posted. During his interview with the police department, board members took note of each of Denny's responses. Their notes highlighted Denny's poor attitude, immaturity, difficulty in answering law enforcement questions, and a lack of consideration for the feelings of his victims. But they noticed that, as per Denny's twisted perspective, engaging in illegal activities was acceptable as long as he could evade detection and punishment. Despite his admissions of criminal activity and poor judgment, one board member simply wrote, "Needs to grow up," in the summary section of Denny's interview document. However, in unanimous agreement, the entire board recommended against hiring Denny, with one member explicitly stating, "Definitely do not hire." And yet, he not only managed to get hired, but also managed to ascend the ranks within the Livingston Parish Sheriff's Office to become the head commander of SWAT. People don't change their ways much. And in Denny's case, this was quite evident from his years-long obsession over women and young girls. It became a baffling mystery for the LBI agents working on Denny's case to figure out how he was hired in the first place. Also, what he could have possibly done to reach his then-attained career position without ever getting caught for his earlier crimes puzzled them. In February 2002, during Denny's polygraph test for the Livingston Parish Sheriff's Office interview process, he was classified as a high-risk hire. However, Deputy Jason Ard endorsed him and even asserted that Denny would be an excellent employee with good character. Another incident occurred in 2013, when Lieutenant Todd Webb of Baton Rouge PD expressed concerns to Sheriff Ard about Denny. Todd reported that his stepdaughter had a recent sleepover at Denny's house, as she was friends with a girl her age who was staying at Denny's place at the time. Denny's then-wife, who wasn't Cynthia, found Denny lying in bed with the two girls while watching a movie. She called the girl's mother, Todd's wife, and explained the situation. And although she didn't specify why she called the girl's mother, she just had a gut feeling about Denny's ill intentions. Todd's wife didn't think much into the whole situation and let it slide off. The girl didn't return home that night and instead stayed over at Denny's house. Following this, Todd and his wife promptly took the girl to a counselor where she disclosed that during the time she spent at Denny's house, Denny would chase her into a room, restrain her, and engage in inappropriate behavior under the guise of playing Tickle Monster. Todd subsequently arranged a meeting with Sheriff Ard expressing his concerns and stated his desire to keep Denny away from him and his family. A few days later, while Todd was at a gas station with his family, he observed Denny slowly circling around them in what he perceived as an intimidation tactic. To address this unsettling behavior, Todd had to escalate the matter through the chain of command. Unfortunately, Because Denny's actions with the little girl were not technically illegal, no disciplinary actions were taken. While not necessarily illegal, the conduct exhibited by Denny was certainly inappropriate and suggestive of grooming behavior. In 2014, another complaint emerged seemingly from a fellow law enforcement officer at the Baton Rouge Police Department. This officer asserted that his wife had recently had an affair with Denny, and that Denny had also engaged in inappropriate behavior, including tickling with his daughter. Coming back to Denny and Cynthia's arrest on October 22, 2019, as the LBI agents presented all the evidence found against the couple, Denny was immediately fired while Cynthia handed in her resignation just a day after her arrest. Nevertheless, Cynthia and Denny's arrest didn't stop their present workplaces from facing huge repercussions. As the investigation unfolded, the Livingston Parish Sheriff's Office drew considerable criticism as it became apparent that Denny's questionable past and seemingly sick behavior had been overlooked. In particular, it raised questions about whether Sheriff Jason Ard had neglected significant red flags such as the 1998 polygraph test, while clearing him to be hired in the department. Additionally, a total of 4 lawsuits were filed in connection with Denny, Cynthia, and her school board. The mother of one victim filed a lawsuit because her daughter had consumed the tainted cupcakes that Cynthia had brought and distributed at the school. In her legal action, she asserted that the school board breached policies concerning teachers providing homemade edible items to students. She also claimed that the school board neglected to hire a secure and competent teacher, failed to conduct a background check on Cynthia before her employment, and didn't follow proper procedures to ensure student safety. The mother also alleged damage to the quality of life, expressing concern about her daughter that she was at a high risk of contracting serious diseases. An additional filed lawsuit detailed how a father of another victim, upon discovering his child had consumed the spiked cupcakes, descended into profound depression and struggled to find employment. A different mother filed a suit asserting that her family had been grappling with behavioral, mental health, and sleep issues since the disgusting incident took place. Yet another lawsuit claimed that Cynthia showed inappropriate photos to students and even took photos and videos of them. All these lawsuits were against the school board and alleged negligence on their part. On December 1939, Cynthia initiated divorce proceedings against Denny. In her divorce petition, she accused Denny of making credible threats against her life, causing her significant fear. She also sought a temporary restraining order as part of the filing. Both Cynthia and Denny were incarcerated without bond, facing charges related to these crimes. Just when the LBI agents thought that since both Cynthia and Denny were in custody, the situation was in their control and couldn't get any worse, it did. In February 2020, a third individual was apprehended in connection to the overall scheme. Melanie Curtin, also a resident of Denham Springs, was identified as the previously unknown woman involved with Denny and adult victim number 2 back in November 2014. Following her arrest, as she disembarked from a cruise ship, Melanie was transported to the Livingston Parish Jail, where her bond was set at $350,000. Although she managed to acquire the funds and get released a few days later, she was mandated to wear a GPS monitor as part of her bond conditions. Melanie had previously been employed by the Livingston Parish Sheriff's Office, working in the tax department for approximately 18 months between February 2011 and February 2012. At the time of her arrest, she was married to Jason, a former deputy with the Livingston Sheriff's Office. Livingston Parish teacher Cynthia Perkins accepting a plea deal today from prosecutors in exchange for testifying against her estranged husband, Dennis Perkins. And our Ariel Salk was at the courthouse when Cynthia pleaded guilty to multiple sex crimes. Ariel, it sounds like this plea deal caught everyone off by surprise. That's absolutely correct. We were really prepared for at least a 2-week trial. But at the last minute, there was a plea deal that spared the victims the trauma of going into court. While Perkins accepts guilt, she will spend the next 4 decades behind bars. On February 14, 2022, Cynthia opted to accept a plea deal. According to the plea deal, Cynthia would be charged with 3 counts of second-degree assault in an explicit manner, mingling of harmful substances, and a count of production of inappropriate child images. As part of the plea agreement, Cynthia committed to testifying against her ex-husband, Denny. And in return, she was given a 41-year sentence. So she divorced him, and if it gives you any indication of what their plan of attack is, they immediately filed for divorce. She actually just struck a plea deal with some of the prosecutors here. So she now has to testify against him at trial, and she has agreed to do that in exchange for what some people in this area are calling a light sentence. She'll probably do about 40 years and will probably be eligible for good times, so maybe 20 years. So we'll see what happens. What's really interesting about this case is these are the people that you teach your children to trust. You teach your children to trust law enforcement. You teach them to trust you're their teacher and to think that they could do something as sick and twisted as this. It really just has this whole community in utter shock. During her sentencing, Cynthia had already accepted her fate and realized that she deserved it. She even decided to address everyone in the court to make an apology. She started by apologizing to the entire Livingston parish. She told her friends, her co-workers, her family, and her students that she deeply regretted her actions, and Anne was extremely sorry for what she had done. And lastly, she apologized to her victims, telling them that they didn't deserve anything she did to them. Cynthia's father, Greg, also chose to speak on Cynthia's behalf and made an apology to all the victims in the case. As the defendant's father, he didn't condone any of the violent acts against the victims. He made a special apology to the child victims and Cynthia's students at the junior high she was employed at. Greg made a special apology to child victim number 1, saying that he dearly loved her. Since the identities of all the victims were kept a secret, this statement made everyone wonder whether child victim number 1 was related to Cynthia's family in any way. However, right after this apology, he also made an attempt to do some damage control and defend his daughter as much as he could. He said that Cynthia's kids were her life, and being a mother, she would do anything for them. And to come to terms with what Cynthia had done to her victims was hard for them. Greg added that Cynthia's behavior started to change as soon as she met Denny. According to Greg, Denny forced Cynthia into indulging in those heinous acts. He also shared that before anything else, Cynthia was a victim of Denny too. Greg partly took the blame for not looking into Denny's past before giving him the blessing to marry his daughter. Before returning to his seat, Greg prayed for the victim's healing and once again apologized for everything that had happened because of his daughter. In an attempt to defend her daughter, Cynthia's mother also made a statement which was full of excuses. She described Cynthia as a caring and loving person who was adored by all. She almost refused to believe that Cynthia had been a part of those heinous acts against the 2 child victims. And as her husband did, she too blamed it on Denny. Even by the end of her statement, Cynthia's mother didn't focus on apologizing to the victims, but instead tried to convince the ones present in the court to see Cynthia from her eyes. The father of one of the child victims shared a letter written to her by Cynthia. The letter stated, "My life is so much better. I remember every time you hurt me and how scared I was to talk to you. I think of what my life would have been like with you still in it. You are a horrible, selfish, and manipulating person. I hope you are ashamed of yourself and you rot in prison. I wrote this so you know you didn't break me down. You don't deserve to be a mom or even be free. You will forever be known as the person who hurt me." Following her sentencing, Cynthia was transferred to the Louisiana Department of Corrections to fulfill her sentence. The district attorney and her attorneys made statements, and overall, everyone appeared satisfied with her verdict. It was emotional inside the courtroom today. The sentencing hearing gave Cynthia Perkins an opportunity to not only apologize to her victims, but to her family. And those who were impacted by Perkins the most were able to share their peace. I think what you heard today was a lot of pain in there from a lot of people. Cynthia Perkins showed little emotion as she apologized to the victims, her family, and her former students and co-workers before she was sentenced to 41 years in prison. Perkins pled guilty to multiple sex crimes, including "It really goes to show you the damage that people can do with these evil acts." Perkins' family spoke. Her father and mother told the judge their daughter was a victim of abuse by her husband, Dennis Perkins. This started when she met Denny Perkins, and he corrupted her and enforced her and coerced her into doing some terrible things that she has a lot of guilt over and she has a lot of remorse for. Melanie's trial, which took place in March 2022, spanned approximately 2 days and was conducted in a camera-free zone. A victim who spoke during the trial revealed that she remained unaware of what had happened to her until the discovery of the video during the investigation. Melanie's defense attempted to argue that she was drugged and had no recollection of the incident. Melanie claimed to have visited the hospital that night, believing it to be an allergic reaction, attempting to leverage this in her favor. However, the prosecution presented a nearly 20-minute video depicting Melanie willingly participating in the disgusting crime. In the video, a blanket had been placed over the victim's head. She was lying there completely unconscious as Melanie and Denny performed explicit acts on her. It was understandable why she had no recollection of what had happened to her that night. She mentioned that Denny had proposed the idea of having a threesome before, which made her really uncomfortable. She was absolutely unaware of the recorded incident and expressed a desire to literally die when she was shown some of the footage. The video strongly suggested that she might have been drugged. After deliberating for almost 8 hours, the jury presented Melanie with a guilty verdict for aggravated assault in an explicit manner and video voyeurism. Melanie erupted in loud screams upon hearing the verdict and caused a disturbance in the courtroom. Although her attorneys sought to keep her out on bond so she could look after her children, the judge denied the request. She was promptly taken into custody to await sentencing and was escorted out of the courtroom. Later, on March 21, 2022, the day of her sentencing, Melanie decided to give an impact statement in which she denied having an affair with Denny but admitted that there had been a few isolated incidents 6 months to a year before the incident of November 2014 when she and Denny had spent some time together. She expressed remorse, stating that when she learned that Denny was married, she ended her relationship with him and completely cut him off. She said that befriending Denny and trusting him was the biggest mistake of her life, and she deeply regretted the decision of going over to Denny's house that November night. Expressing more regret for not testifying earlier, she appealed to the judge for mercy and emphasized her desire to be an actively involved mother in her children's lives since they'd already lost their father. She prayed for a fresh new start. Melanie never offered an apology to her victim. This lack of remorse on Melanie's part only showed how Melanie was more concerned with preserving her own life than acknowledging the traumatizing impact that she'd made on the victim's life. Melanie kept on pleading with the judge for leniency. Melanie's sisters portrayed her previous husband as an immensely abusive man, emphasizing Melanie's entrusting nature towards Denny. Despite the serious nature of the charges, the discussion seemed to center around portraying Melanie positively with little regard for the well-being of the victim. Melanie's boyfriend addressed the court and drew comparisons to other people who had committed more severe offenses, but were given comparatively lighter sentences. He specifically mentioned Cynthia and said that Cynthia's crimes involved children. He emphasized on the fact that while Cynthia's actions were voluntary and took place with her full awareness and cooperation, Melanie's did not. In the end, Melanie was given a life sentence without the possibility of parole. The sentence was mandated by the aggravated charge. The public was surprised by the fact that Melanie received a more strict sentence compared to Cynthia's 41-year term. But Cynthia's lighter sentence was probably influenced by her acceptance of a plea deal and her decision to not take the case to trial. This action by Cynthia spared the victims from being subjected to further distress. The legal options chosen by Cynthia were not adopted by Melanie. Hence, by the end, Melanie was given a stricter punishment. Even after the scrutiny from Melanie's family, the judge maintained the original sentence. The victim, through a statement read in court, expressed the profound impact on her life, detailing emotional struggles, anxiety, and panic attacks. She emphasized the incomprehensible betrayal and the lasting trauma by stating that it was now extremely hard for her to look at her body in the mirror and what Melanie did to her was not okay. She added that she might not be able to indulge in any romantic activities with anyone ever again. In an unexpected turn of events, Denny chose to not go to trial and instead entered a guilty plea in January 2023 as part of his plea deal. Livingston Parish Deputy Dennis Perkins pleads guilty today and sentenced to 100 years behind bars. Fox 44's investigative reporter Ariel Salk joins us in the studio. Ariel, this plea came somewhat out of nowhere from my understanding. Is that correct? That's right. For months, both sides told us that they were not going to take a plea. But in a surprising twist, 1 week before the trial is scheduled to start, Dennis Perkins admitted his guilt. Denny admitted guilt to several charges and received a 100-year prison sentence, ensuring permanent incarceration. According to police stipulations, he would also be ineligible for parole or an appeal. During Denny's sentencing, the mother of one of the victims also gave an impact statement which said, "As parents and caregivers, it's our job to protect our kids from evil. I'm not sure if there's anyone you care about besides yourself, but I hope you spend every day worrying about your own safety and the devastating effects of the deplorable actions. You will no longer have control over your victims anymore. And in the end, you're getting what you deserve." A victim impact statement means we're victims. You see, we are survivors. 3+ years later, I'm raising survivors, not victims. So here's my statement. I am so thankful to not have to sit in this courtroom with you or your attorney ever again. Have a nice life in prison. Dennis himself addressed the court and gave a statement saying, "I'd like to say I am sorry. I spent more than 3 years living in a box and it's not about me. I just want to make the statement, Jesus Christ has forgiven me. I'm grateful for that. I hope and pray that anybody that this is affected finds hope and healing." The public found satisfaction in achieving justice without subjecting the victims and the entire community to the trauma of the trial that was scheduled for January 2023. Attorneys took the time to meet individually with each victim, ensuring their full understanding of the plea terms, and secured their approval before proceeding further. We felt satisfied that this accomplished justice, and we were able to get a win without putting the victims of this entire community, through the rigors of that trial that was going to happen next week. And were the victims of the family members satisfied with this plea deal? Absolutely. We took time to meet with each of them individually and make sure they fully understood all the terms of the plea and that we had their blessing before going forward. I think you guys said a few months ago that you guys were not going to give Dennis Perkins a plea deal. What changed to that? Well, we didn't really offer him a plea deal. What happened was we were contacted by the defense. They made an offer, and at that point we considered it. And after some tinkering, we were able to come to an agreement that was accepted. You talked about the victims too. How disturbing would this evidence be to come into a courtroom? I mean, not just for the victims, but for the jurors who would have had to watch it. It would have been very disturbing. And that's why we're so happy that we were able to achieve what we did today without going through that. Primarily protecting the public safety. No one has to worry about Dennis Perkins hurting anyone ever again. And the victims were consulted and were all okay with this, and we were okay with it. So yes, justice was served. What Cynthia, Denny, and Melanie did was undoubtedly horrifying. And while they all received a just sentence, the journey ahead for their victims was still going to be a tough one. The trauma and abuse they had faced at the hands of the perpetrators might even have left them scarred for life. For them, the road to recovery would not be an easy one, but knowing that their abusers were now locked up behind bars gave them a sense of relief. While Cynthia serves her 41 years in the Louisiana Department of Corrections prison, her ex-husband, who is remarried, is raising the 3 children with his current wife in a happy blended family in what seems to be a normal home. Melanie is currently serving her life sentence in Concordia Parish Correctional Facility. And Denny at the moment is carrying out his 100-year sentence in the David Wade Correctional Facility, which is a medium to high-risk security prison. Going through each and every aspect of this case, do you think there are more victims who just haven't been found or haven't come forward? Do you think any of the child victims were related to Cynthia and Denny? Even after knowing Denny's full background and the Livingston Parish Sheriff's Office Board unanimously deciding to not hire Denny, why do you think Deputy Jason Ard hire? Anchorage is a city in the state of Alaska, USA. It's known for its cultural sites, traditional crafts, and stage dances. Anchorage is a vibrant city with many positives, including its stunning scenery, no sales tax, and friendly community. However, the city also has its downsides. Anchorage has consistently been in the top 10 most dangerous cities in the U.S. Being Alaska's largest city, criminals enjoy the advantage of traveling through the area virtually undetected. The violent crime rate in Anchorage is more than double the national average of the U.S. And sadly, Samantha's life was cut short in the city of Anchorage when she was just 18. Samantha Koenig was born in Anchorage, Alaska on August 30, 1993. She was brought up in the same town by her parents James Koenig and Darlene Christensen. James, Samantha's father, never knew he could love someone so much until the day Samantha was born. He would always stand by your side. He affectionately called her Honey Bunny. Samantha was full of life and had the biggest, most wonderful personality from her childhood, which she carried into adulthood as well. She had an infectious charm and a brilliant sarcastic wit. Her desire was to work with animals, whether in the equestrian field or out in the wild. She was considering enlisting in the Navy to become a nurse and build a lucrative career. Her family was always proud and supportive of her. Samantha attended West High School and Avail High School, both in Anchorage. In February 2011, when she was 17, she started dating a boy named Dwayne Tortolani II and was in a relationship with him. Samantha loved going fishing with her father and camping and playing Call of Duty with Dwayne, her boyfriend. She also had a keen interest in photography and in writing music and poetry. She'd worked at Subway and House of Harley, and by 2012, when Samantha was 18, she'd recently started working as a barista at a coffee stand named Common Grounds Espresso at 630 East on Tudor Street in her hometown of Anchorage. Sadly, this would be the last place she would be seen alive. At 8 p.m. on Wednesday, February 1, 2012, 18-year-old Samantha Coney was on her shift at Common Grounds Espresso, the coffee stand. Even as the night turned darker and the streets went quiet, Samantha stayed at the coffee shop cleaning it up. Little did she know, a demon with prying eyes was just around the corner looking for his next target. In the next few minutes, Samantha went missing, and that February night in 2012 became the last one anyone saw her alive. The same night, just a few hours after Samantha's abduction, Samantha's boyfriend Dwayne witnessed a man breaking into his truck. He feared that the man was trying to steal the truck and went inside his home to call for help. But by then, the man had fled, leaving the truck behind. Dwayne was unaware at the time that Samantha had been abducted. The night passed quietly as Samantha's loved ones went to their beds, not knowing of the tragedy that had already happened. Samantha wasn't reported missing until the next day, when her parents failed to locate her or get in contact with her. The investigation into Samantha's disappearance was led by Jolene Godin, Jeff Bell, and Lieutenant Dave Parker. Even though it had been quite a few hours since Samantha was abducted, the detectives immediately descended on Anchorage, hoping to find the missing girl. They obtained surveillance footage from the Common Grounds Espresso coffee stand where Samantha was working on the night she disappeared. The footage showed an armed man wearing a black hoodie and possibly a baseball cap suddenly appearing at the coffee stand. He pointed a gun at Samantha, and soon, Samantha was seen turning off the lights of the coffee stand and walking out of it. Samantha and the man then walked toward the old Seaward Highway. Looking at Samantha's behavior and demeanor, the detectives figured that Samantha had been taken against her will, and her case was ruled an abduction. After a thorough search of the coffee stand, the detectives found out that all the cash from the coffee stand was missing. At least 24 detectives were put on the job to sort through leads in the case. Detectives and volunteers worked hand in hand even through the nights in freezing temperatures to search for Samantha. But their efforts were in vain. For more than 2 weeks, there weren't any signs of Samantha, and the detectives were finding it difficult to identify the man who took Samantha, as most of his face was covered. At a press conference, Samantha's father, James Koenig, offered a $12,500 reward for any information leading to Samantha's return. He hoped that this might make someone step forward with some information about his daughter or about the man who had kidnapped her. Further, James Koenig requested his daughter's kidnapper to send her home. He said that he would give the kidnapper anything they'd ask for. "These people need to give my daughter back so we can get back with our lives. I will do anything. Take me." Within a few more days, Samantha's friends and families collected more donations to put toward the reward, and the reward was quickly increased to $41,000. We had people who were donating money, thousands of dollars. We had T-shirts made, pens made. We had people who were putting flyers throughout the state of Alaska. But sadly, nothing came of it, and the reward went unclaimed. During all this time, the police controversially refused to release the surveillance video of Samantha's abduction for reasons unknown. Surprisingly, after a few days, on February 24, 2012, a man texted Dwayne, Samantha's boyfriend, from her phone. Her boyfriend just goes sheet white. He's got his phone and there's a text from her phone. and told him to look for a package in a local park. When the detectives arrived at the park, they found a photo of Samantha. When you enter that park, there's a bulletin board, and tacked was a Ziploc bag that had what ultimately was a photograph of Samantha and a ransom note. The fact that there was a ransom note really ratchets up the tension because, okay, she's alive, and what are we going to do to get her back? The photo, which was put up to prove that Samantha was alive, also had a note behind it in which Samantha's kidnapper demanded $30,000 to be deposited into Samantha's bank account. The proof of life picture convinced Samantha's parents that there was still hope and she could be saved. They now only wished that their daughter Samantha could return home safely. Up to that point, law enforcement, FBI, did not know this was Israel's case. However, James, Samantha's father, noticed something odd in the picture that came with the ransom demand. To him, the photo looked weird because Samantha's hair was braided and she never wore it that way. Even though Samantha's father had an eerie suspicion about Samantha's picture, he got to work and made arrangements to gather the ransom money. As soon as Samantha's father came up with the money, he deposited the funds into the account that was linked to Samantha's debit card. While the money had been transferred, the detectives had a plan ready. They had worked out a deal with the bank so that Anchorage Police Department and the FBI would be notified immediately when the debit card was used for anything. They decided that their best course of action was to track the activity on Samantha's debit card. They assumed that the individual making any withdrawals from Samantha's account had to be her kidnapper. Perhaps this could lead them to a suspect. So a few days go by, and at this point, we have our first ATM withdrawal from Samantha's account. The detectives were successful in tracing the locations of the withdrawals, which were made after the money had been deposited into Samantha's account. There were 3 withdrawals in the city of Anchorage of $500, the daily limit. In all of the ATM situations where he was using the debit card, as soon as the alerts came, we dispatched law enforcement there as quickly as we could, but we were literally minutes behind him. But the kidnapper made a mistake during one of his very first withdrawals. In addition to capturing a masked man, an ATM camera in Arizona had also captured a white Ford Focus, the car he was traveling in. This information was pushed out to law enforcement across the entire corridor, and a lookout bulletin was circulated for the suspect's car. As the detectives were able to track withdrawals from Samantha's account, they quickly deduced that her abductor had moved throughout the southwestern U.S. and was now traveling east along Interstate 10. Every patrol officer was now keeping a lookout for any cars matching the description of the kidnappers. It didn't take long for the police to find the kidnapper after that. There was a Texas Highway Patrol corporal and he saw a white Ford Focus. He thought this looks kinda like the car they're looking for. His car perfectly matched the description provided to the officers. He broke the speed limit by 3 miles per hour. And in Texas, that's a good traffic stop, so they stopped him. The man was asked to step outside his vehicle and show his driver's license. The police officer is handed an Alaska driver's license. He was identified as Israel Keys of Anchorage, Alaska. He seemed very relaxed. There was nothing that stood out about him. I don't think he knew what we knew while we were talking to him. His vehicle was searched after officers spotted cash stained with bright ink. There's a gun in the trunk of the car as well. But the big thing is Samantha's cell phone, and then Samantha's debit card has also recovered. When the ATM card was found, the decision to put him in a vehicle, secure him, and take him to jail was instantaneously made. This ball game is over. Keys was immediately linked with Samantha's disappearance and was arrested on March 13, 2012. He was transferred to be imprisoned at Anchorage Correctional Complex, Anchorage, Alaska. As the detectives took a deeper look into his past, they made some worrying discoveries. Israel Keys was born in Richmond, Utah on January 7, 1978 to Heidi Keys, née Hackinson and John Jeffrey Keys. He was the second of 10 children born to a large and devout Mormon family who were also anti-government and didn't believe in public school or modern medicine. In Keys' childhood days, his parents were members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints from Torrance, California. There, Keys and his siblings were homeschooled and taught Christian beliefs until 1983. After leaving the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints faith, Keys' father moved the family to a remote plot of land north of Colville, Washington in Stevens County when Israel was 5 years old. Isolated from society, the Keys family lived in a one-room cabin located on Rocky Creek Road, where they lived without electricity or running water. The Keyes family then moved to Colville, where they attended services at a church called the Ark, which practiced white supremacist Christian identity ideology. For some years, some of the Keyes children had been forced to sleep in a tent due to their cabin's small size. To survive, the Keyes children were made to hunt their food, chop firewood, and work on local farms to support the family. By his teenage years, Keyes had become a skilled and proficient carpenter. He also worked for a Colville contractor from 1995 to 1997. As a hobby, Keyes hunted anything with a heartbeat and once admitted to skinning a deer alive to his peers at the church. Soon thereafter, the family relocated to Smyrna, Maine. On one occasion, after an intense argument with his parents, Keyes declared his atheism to them. This led his parents to evict him from their residence. They then instructed his younger siblings, who looked up to their brother, to never have contact with him again. Keyes then developed an inordinate interest in Satanism. On July 9, 1998, Keyes relocated and enlisted in the United States Army in the state of New York, where he served as a specialist in Alpha Company, 1st Battalion, 5th Infantry Regiment. He passed a rigorous month-long preliminary course for United States Army Rangers training. He was stationed at Fort Lewis and Fort Hood, as well as abroad in Egypt from 1998 through February 2001. Keyes was also awarded an Army Achievement Medal for his meritorious service as a gunner and assistant gunner. In February 2007, Keyes started a construction business in Alaska called Keyes Construction after having worked as a handyman, contractor, and construction worker. And finally, by 2012, Keyes was living in Anchorage with his girlfriend and his 10-year-old daughter. While in custody for the murder, abduction, and assault on Samantha, Keyes was interviewed by local authorities and the FBI a number of times. He did not say anything about the kidnapping other than denying that he had anything to do with it. The suspect is identified as 34-year-old Israel Keyes. When they found him, we had no clue who this man was. Never seen his face before. Then it became rare shape. But authorities won't have any idea what happened to Samantha until they talk to Keith face to face. Keith finally confessed to the crime and revealed the details of the horrific night he abducted Samantha on. Whatever it takes to do that. The first thing we want to know, what everybody wants to know, is where's Samantha? Before he abducted Samantha from the coffee shop, he'd been stalking the area on Tudor Street for quite some time. He admitted to authorities that on the night of February 1, 2012, he only planned to commit robbery. However, in the heat of the moment, he decided to kidnap Samantha. That night, just when it was almost 8 in the evening, he walked up to the window of the coffee shop just prior to closing time, wearing a ski mask and ordering a coffee. Samantha made the coffee and handed it to Keyes, after which she pulled out a gun and pointed it at her. Keyes demanded cash from Samantha and ordered her to turn off the lights. The moment Samantha turned off the lights, Keyes jumped through the window, bound her hands, stuffed a handful of napkins in her mouth, and forced her out of the coffee stand. Samantha broke away from Keyes and tried to run away. Keyes chased her and tackled her to the ground. He put one arm around her and pointed a gun at her body with the other hand, telling her that she needed to cooperate. He said that the gun had to silence her and that she should not do anything to make him kill her. They walked across Tudor Road into the parking lot between the IHOP restaurants and Dairy Queen, where Keyes' white pickup truck was parked. Keyes had previously prepared a truck for the abduction by taking the mounted toolbox off the bed of the truck as well as removing the license plates. Keyes then bound Samantha in the truck and drove away. While driving Samantha to his house, he told her that he only wanted to hold her for ransom. On the way, Keyes realized that Samantha did not have her cell phone or debit card on her. He needed both to procure the ransom. Keyes returned to the coffee stand, found Samantha's phone, and sent her family and friends texts to avert suspicion. Keyes then placed Samantha in his shed at his home, tying her up by the neck. Samantha told Keyes that her debit card was in her boyfriend's truck. Keyes drove to Samantha's boyfriend's residence and stole the card out of the vehicle. This was when Dwayne, Samantha's boyfriend, actually witnessed the theft but was unable to prevent Keyes from fleeing the scene. At that time, Dwayne was unaware that this burglary had a connection with his girlfriend. After he came back to his house in the later hours of that same night, Keyes went inside to check on his daughter and girlfriend and make sure they were asleep. He poured himself a glass of wine and returned to the shed. He had a shed in his driveway, and ultimately he put Samantha in the shed, and she's found in the shed. There, he was drinking alcohol and smoking cigars, and then turned up the music so that any sounds that were irregular wouldn't be heard by his girlfriend, daughter who were in the house, or the neighbors. Once Keyes knew he had access to Samantha's card, he realized that he didn't need Samantha alive anymore. Keyes told Samantha how he would assault her before strangling her to death with the rope he had already tied around her neck. And that's exactly what he did. Keyes mercilessly strangled Samantha as she gasped for air till there was no life left in her. He left her body in the shed, went back to his house and packed his and his daughter's bags. The morning after the kidnapping, Israel Keyes rolled her body up and stuck it in a box in his shed, and then woke his girlfriend up and his child up, went to New Orleans, boarded a cruise ship, and then came back about 2.5 weeks later. Keyes returned from his vacation on February 17, 2012. He'd left Samantha's body to freeze inside the shed for that entire duration. Although Samantha had been dead at that time, Keyes figured he could still get a ransom from her family. Because of the cold temperatures, she had frozen. And then he thawed her out and had to apply makeup to her in order to make her look more lifelike. And also, he told detectives he braided her hair as he had braided his daughter's hair and taken her photograph to be used in the ransom note, not knowing that she never wore her hair that way. Keyes took Samantha's body and attempted to make her look alive. He sewed her eyes open with a fishing line and put makeup on her face. In addition, he braided her hair, propped her body up against a wall, and held out a recent issue of the Alaska Daily News in front of her. Keyes then took a Polaroid of Samantha as proof of life, typed a $30,000 ransom on the back of that photo, and placed it at a local park on February 24, 2012. He then used Samantha's phone to text Dwayne, Samantha's boyfriend, to provide instructions on what to do next. As more grisly details about Samantha's murder unfolded, the detectives were left distraught. What disturbed them the most was the fact that when Keyes took Samantha's picture as proof of life, she was not alive. All that time after the detectives received the picture and started looking for Samantha with the hope that she was still alive, Samantha was already long gone. Later, Keyes also confessed that he dismembered Samantha's body and disposed of the remains in the Matanuska Lake just outside of Palmer, Alaska, to the north. It was confirmed that Samantha was killed on February 1, 2012, the same night she was abducted in Anchorage, Alaska. Samantha was merely 18 years old. Her body was discovered on April 2, 2012, just a few days after Keyes confessed to the crime. The day after his full confession, the FBI dispatches their cold water dive team. Special Agent Bobby Chacon is tapped to lead the recovery efforts. It's still late winter in Anchorage, and the conditions we're going to be operating under are extreme. We get to Lake Matanuska, and some FBI agents, they're kind of standing watch over a spot on the lake that Keyes had directed them to. There was a fishing hole that was frozen over. I looked at that and I said, if she's here, we're going to find her. Keyes spent 7 months behind bars speaking to the authorities about his double life and his previous crimes. He confessed to being a serial killer, assaulter, arsonist, burglar, and bank robber. The earliest crime to which Keyes admitted was the violent assault of a teenage girl who'd been tubing with her friends down the Deschutes River in Maupin, Oregon sometime between 1996 and 1998. Originally, he'd planned to murder her as a part of a satanic ritual, but he let her go in the river tube he'd abducted her from. He believed that he was too timid and not violent enough back then. After this incident, he promised himself that he was never going to let that happen again. By that, he meant he was not going to let any of his victims survive. Although several of his victims remained unnamed, besides Samantha, it was discovered that he killed Bill and Lorraine Courier, a married couple that lived in Vermont. Keyes broke into their home in June 2011. He then drove the couple to an abandoned farmhouse where he shot Bill and strangled Lorraine. Additionally, Keyes disclosed that he'd assaulted Lorraine before he murdered her. Their bodies were never found. If Keyes hadn't confessed to the crime, it might have never been solved. Stated that he was 14 when he realized that there were things which he thought were normal, but nobody else seemed to think the same way about those things. This included torturing animals and stealing guns from people's homes. The detectives were quick to observe that Keyes was not an ordinary serial killer. He went to great lengths and took various precautions to avoid being detected. This included traveling around the country, burying murder kits, and paying for everything in cash. He'd leave murder kits hidden in various places around the U.S. with things like weapons, tools, and cash in them in order to not have to travel with items that may seem conspicuous. Additionally, he chose his victims randomly. He didn't have a particular type when it came to choosing his victims. Keyes was more of an opportunist than a planner. Once he killed someone somewhere, he never returned to that area ever again, which allowed him to disappear without consequence. When asked why he killed all those people, he simply replied to the authorities, "Why not?" After conducting many interviews with Keyes, the detectives believed that he felt no remorse for what he did and killed because he got an immense amount of enjoyment out of it. I think in his words he said, "You got your monster." Keyes, however, did admit that he was careless in Samantha's murder, which is what got him caught. Samantha was his last victim. Samantha's life brought many communities around the world together. Her story touched the hearts of many, from family and friends to complete strangers. She'll be missed by many and lives on in everyone's hearts forever. Samantha was cremated at sunrise on Easter Sunday, April 8, 2012. The celebration of Samantha's life, attended by her loved ones, was held on Sunday, April 22, 2012 in the afternoon at West High School Auditorium. In lieu of mourning for Samantha, her family solicited everyone to keep Samantha in their thoughts by sharing a smile and a laugh with those they encountered. In May 2012, Keyes tried to escape from a courtroom after breaking his leg irons during a routine hearing. Fortunately, his escape attempt was unsuccessful and authorities restrained him again. On December 2, 2012, when Keyes was 34 years old and still being held in custody awaiting his trial for the murder of Samantha Koenig, he took his own life. He'd managed to conceal a razor blade in his cell and used this to commit the act. A note found under his body consisted of an ode to Samantha's murder. The letter also had 11 skulls drawn on it with his own blood labeled, "We are one." Officials suspected this alluded to the total number of Keyes' unnamed victims. But neither their identities nor clues as to where their remains could be found were revealed in the note. A small funeral for the 34-year-old was held in Valley Hillside Cemetery, Washington, where he was buried days after his death. His mother and his sisters attended the service conducted by their pastor, Jake Gardner. Most of the FBI interrogations conducted on Keyes were released publicly in February 2018. It was believed that he had at least 11 victims. One of these confirmed kills was Samantha Koenig, the one who led the police to his capture. But by the time he encountered Samantha Koenig, he'd already killed up to 10 people in multiple states such as Washington, New York, Vermont, and Florida. The FBI also released writings found in Israel Keyes' jail cell when he took his own life. The writings, a combination of pencil and ink on a yellow legal pad, were discovered beneath Keyes' body, illegible and covered in blood. Because of their initial condition, the writings were sent to the FBI laboratory in Virginia for processing. The FBI concluded that there was no hidden code or message in the writings. Further, it was determined that the writings did not offer any investigative clues or leads as to the identity of other possible victims. The FBI did not offer any commentary as to the meaning of these writings. Jolene Godin, the detective who led the investigation in Samantha's case, said that apart from Samantha and Bill and Lorraine Corrier, Keyes discussed 7 or 8 other victims. She and her team are working hard every day to identify those people. Investigators believe that Keyes killed and buried a victim in upstate New York in April 2009. The detectives are working with law enforcement around the country to link Keyes to other open cases as well. Do you think Israel Keyes was connected to any more murders than the 11 that he was already linked with? Israel also had a girlfriend and a daughter. Do you think they had any idea about Israel's double? On December 16, 1998, a heart-wrenching event unfolded in Merseyside, UK. 21-year-old Lindsay Kay, a mother of 2, vanished from her home on Stamford Road in Southport. Left behind were her precious children and her 23-year-old husband Mitchell Quay. Desperate for answers, Quay turned to the press hoping they could assist in the search for his beloved wife. However, later on, Quay discovered something that left him dumbfounded. How could a happy mother of two leave her beloved children and simply vanish into thin air? And why did the case garner so much media attention? If he thinks that I've killed his daughter, I wouldn't sit in the same room as the guy. But one day, he'll be on my doorstep apologizing. In 1998, Southport, located in Merseyside, England, was a popular coastal town and tourist destination. Known for its beautiful sandy beaches, Southport attracted visitors from across the country who came to enjoy the seaside atmosphere and various attractions. The town boasted a vibrant entertainment scene with amusement parks, arcades, and a lively promenade that offered a range of activities for both locals and tourists. It had a population of around 80 to 90,000 people. As the city was bustling with new jobs and industries, the crime rate was also increasing. Southport's crime rate average was more than the national average, with crimes of violence and offenses being higher than the others. It was in this town's Stamford Road that Lindsay's story took off. Lindsay Quay, previously known as Lindsay Wilson, was born in 1977 to Linda and Peter Wilson. She was the youngest of 6 children and was described as a beautiful, fun-loving, caring person by those who knew her. She was a fun-loving, outgoing, outspoken. She wasn't shy, not as she got older. She was as a baby. If anyone went to guess her, she'd run off shouting their dad. At 17, she found herself pregnant with her first serious boyfriend, but their relationship ended after 5 months. It was then that she met Mitchell Kay, a casino worker who promised to support her in raising the child. They quickly grew inseparable and got married just 5 weeks after starting their relationship. In 1995, Lindsay gave birth to her first child, a daughter named Robin. The couple welcomed their second child, a son named Jack, in 1997. On the surface, everything seemed perfect. A young mother with 2 beautiful children. However, behind closed doors, Lindsay endured persistent violence at the hands of her husband. A neighbor recounted an incident when Lindsay, for months pregnant with Jack, ran down the road to escape Quay's assault. He also proceeded to vandalize their property. Between January 1998, Quay left their home on at least 7 occasions. After his last departure, supposedly for good, Lindsay wrote in her diary, "Mitch walked out, then came back." Another entry stated, "Gone, moved out again." Lastly, she expressed, "So this time, he's gone for good," having reached a breaking point with them rather than waiting until the end. During the summer of 1998, Lindsay managed to break free from Quay and secure a new home on Stamford Road for herself and the children. With the assistance of Women's Aid, an organization supporting victims of domestic violence, she found refuge. Fearing for her safety, Lindsay was provided with a public protection alarm, a lifeline that would summon the police if she activated it. However, despite her efforts, Quay managed to weasel his way back into her life after they moved into the new home. By October 1998, Quay was once again living with Lindsay and their children. But on the December 15th, Lindsay was seen alive for the last time before vanishing without a trace. Here is where things take a disturbing turn. Despite Lindsay going missing in December, her supposedly loving husband never reported her disappearance. It wasn't until February 5, 1999, over 50 agonizing days since she vanished, that a concerned social worker for the children raised the alarm, realizing they hadn't seen Lindsay in quite some time. When the police finally questioned Quay about his wife's absence, he offered no plausible explanation as to why he'd never reported her missing. Kay claimed that Lindsay left around 2 p.m. on Christmas Day in December 1998 after a night out with friends. According to him, she didn't say goodbye to her beloved children and only took a suitcase of clothes with her. His feeble response was that he simply assumed she'd left one day. This raised significant suspicion about his involvement and raised questions about what truly happened to Lindsay. Despite Lindsay's departure, the police found it hard to believe she would abandon her children without a word, especially before Christmas. Her family shared the disbelief and knew Quay was lying. They were convinced he'd harmed Lindsay, but proving it was the challenge. Quay, however, didn't simply move on with his life. He appeared on morning television appealing for his missing wife and even allowed journalists and a documentary crew to follow him around. Anyone who encountered Quay felt uneasy. He displayed a lack of remorse or concern when discussing his wife's disappearance, which struck everyone as odd. You know, you've got this finger of suspicion pointing at you. You've got this big question mark over your head and, I know you featured on local television and you've been interviewed there. And obviously the question has to be put. And I know what your answer's gonna be, but, did you tell her? No. I just wish someone had listened to me. It's important to note that the police possessed crucial information not available to the public. They received emergency calls reporting instances of domestic violence Lindsay had endured. They also spoke to her friends and family, all of whom pointed directly at Kwai. In early February 1999, Kwai made a claim that he'd spotted Lindsay locally at the market and in a BMW. However, the police investigated and found no evidence to support his statement. Instead, they uncovered something else entirely. Since Lindsay vanished, Kwai had been forging her signature to withdraw her benefits money. Consequently, on February 20th, 1999, he was arrested on suspicion of murder and fraud. Although the police lacked enough evidence to charge Kay with murder, they did charge him with fraud. He was subsequently convicted and sentenced to community service. For 18 long months, Lindsay's parents, including her outspoken father, Peter Wilson, had to visit the men they believed killed their daughter's home to collect their grandchildren. Kay had the audacity to claim that once the truth emerged and he was proven innocent, Peter would owe him an apology. Kwai shamelessly reveled in the attention, spinning his web of lies, attempting to portray himself as the victim, an innocent husband abandoned and persecuted by society. After enduring a year of relentless media attention, Kwai apparently grew tired of the spotlight. He granted an interview published in the newspapers expressing his desire to no longer be the center of press focus. One particular police officer, Detective Superintendent Jeff Sloan, noticed something peculiar about Kwai. Sloan remarked that Kwai seemed to provoke him intentionally by involving the media. Sloan viewed Kwai as an egotist who took advantage of the situation, reveling in his newfound notoriety. Kwai's behavior often antagonized the police, exemplified by a Christmas card he sent to D. Sloan. The card contained a bottle of hair dye with a note suggesting Sloan should use it to get rid of the gray bits and gain more confidence. Sloan acknowledged that, like anyone else, when someone irritates us, we naturally expend more energy to bring that person down, especially when we know they are ultimately at fault.